Hi, welcome back. We've got another one that your dad would like with this really cool Thunderbird 2 model kit from the early 90s. I got this for an absolute steal on eBay as it was half assembled. So we'll crack it open and see what the damage is. It's very old school and you can tell this was not from a smoke-free home. But it comes with a cool sticker that I would feel bad using, so it will stay in the box. Oh. So it looks like they've started to assemble Thunderbird 2. I assume this was in lots of little pieces. Maybe on a sprue. But yeah, they seem to have abandoned it at the halfway point. And I didn't realise that it was motorised. So you add some batteries and it acts like a pull back and go car, I would assume. Or it just goes forward indefinitely until the batteries run out. But we're going to leave that out. Yeah, it looks like everything else is on the sprue. Hello, Mr. Stoken. He's come to check out the box. And he's confirmed that it's not from a smoke-free home. So this should be a relatively easy job. Hello again. Just to clean it all up. Thunderbird 4 was in 2 or 3 pieces. So that went together pretty easy. Likewise with the mole. And then the rescue vehicle, I believe it's called, is the most tricky one, but we got there in the end. So from there, it is time to paint. So I go for a prime in black, making sure I've got good coverage because I'm going to hand paint everything as I do. So I start out with some flat green from Vallejo. It looks perfect on the bottle, and then upon painting it, that is a little bit too bright for Thunderbird 2, I think. Just almost like one shade off. I was so close. And then I moved on to the World Bearers Red, and I did that to the exhaust. As for the green, we're going to sort it later. I've got a plan. And then using some Towelite Ochre, I set about adding the yellow to the mole. Possibly one of my favourite small vehicles. But this isn't a ranking list. If it was, it'd be S tier. But yeah, I don't want to say I was disappointed, but I feel like you get quite enamoured with the box art on these model kits that sometimes you're slightly disappointed by how the models aren't as detailed as you would have liked, and in this case it very much looked like a toy, especially with the little motor attached and the wheels. So the plan is to go in by hand and do all these little details, such as the window on Thunderbird 4 and other little nubbins on the mole. So to add a little bit of tone, I use some Reckland Flesh Shade. That just gives everything a little bit more character, like so. And then using some of Vallejo's silver, I set about dry brushing all the metallics, especially the main drill on the front of the mole. And then with a teeny tiny brush, going in and doing all the little highlights and details, just to really make it pop. Before painstakingly freehanding the little red line that goes around the mole. Good God. But I'm pretty happy with that. I think it turned out okay. Just a little bit of Northern oil on the metallics to take it back down just a little bit more. And then some sun yellow as the highlights on the yellow, just to give everything a little bit more complexity and character. I do the same to the other 2 vehicles. And as time goes on, I started to realise maybe I should challenge myself to emulate that box art that I was so enamoured by, which made me go ahead and made that order on eBay at 3 AM. It was an absolute bargain though. It was under £10, which is crazy. But I wanted to do something a little bit more with it, so I think the plan is to turn this into a diorama based on the original box art, using the 3D printer and any other tools at my disposal to do so. So I printed out a base and some smoke trails for Thunderbird 2. This was all from Thingiverse, so it's completely free. I used maybe 300 grams of filament on the 3D printer, so £3 or £4 maybe, if you include the electricity, which I do not because I don't know how to work it out because I'm bad at maths, don't worry about it. So I marked out the areas I wanted to turn into the beach as depicted in the image, covered it in PVA glue, and then with what little sand I have left, I do need to restock, I sprinkled that down. A lot of these are bits that got covered in glue. Chaotic. Terrible. There's little bits in it. Oh dear. But it works out in the end. And then to mark out the water area, I use some Cantor Blue and just slop that on there, nice thick coat. And that's just going to act as a base coat for what's coming later. And while the glue and paint dry on that, I crack out some Calgar Blue and put that on all the little clouds. Because it feels like there's an undercoat of light blue in the smoke trails on the painting. And then while it's still wet, I've mixed in some white as well to start to give it that cloud effect before dry brushing it with grey and then moving on to this white for the final coat, just to make everything nice and cloudy looking. I think I got there. Then for the jets I used red, a layer of orange, and finally some yellow. Nothing too fancy as they're barely going to be visible. And then I used some Plasto modelling putty to create the shape of waves and foam on the water. So I went ahead and gave that another coat of Cantor Blue as a base coat. And while it's still wet, I move in with the Macragge Blue, which is slightly lighter, and mix that in. Finally, the Calgar Blue. So since it's all wet, it should blend a little bit, like so, and give as close to a water effect as we can get on my current budget, because normally you do use resin, but it can be expensive and messy. And this was meant to be a short and sweet project. That's why I bought it in the first place. But the heart wants what the heart wants, and what the heart wants is dioramas. And cracking out the Mephiston Red, it is time to finish the details on Thunderbird 2, which involves the little stands where the legs come out, the exhaust ports, the windows, in the same style as I did the windows on Thunderbird 4. And while all those coats were drying, I moved back to the base and got some gloss black for the rim of the base. So I'll go ahead and give that 2 nice generous coats, just to give it that nice finalised look and hide any of the overlap from the blue. Then to bring the green back down on Thunderbird 2, I use some Absolution Green speed paint, which gives me the right colour I want, but is very messy. So then moving back to the flat green, I sponge that on with a makeup sponge. So now it hopefully has a little bit more complexity than the bright green it started out as. Sometimes you just got to trust the process, and I don't trust the process, so I panic until the end and then realise, oh, kind of turned out okay. So then I fill in all the final details, such as the whites on the numbering and decals. I later find out they are decals and I can just paste them on later. So kind of wasted my time there. And silver on the landing gears and the jet exhausts. Landing jets, I guess they are. But yeah, that is it for the painting. The last thing is all the decals, which easier said than done, but quite tricky to apply. They are 34 years old, but I think we got away with it. So it's time for the big reveal. Wow. But thank you so much for watching. If you could give this little channel a like and subscribe to help us grow, that'd be so good. And make suggestions of what I should do next. I love all this niche cult TV stuff, and they do seem to do well in the algorithm. I say well, better than my other stuff, which doesn't do very well. Don't worry about it. Thank you. Bye.